Hello and welcome to our show. This is Inside News with Dale Matthews and Mike Jones. We're on just a little bit later tonight because I was at a meeting and look, one of my monitors is out. I don't know why. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Dale. Well, that's a bummer because I'm always used to seeing two pictures that are descriptive of what's going to be on tonight's show. So now I won't know what to talk about.
This is the first time in all of these shows where this one has not worked. Tonight, we're going to start with the tale of a helicopter. Mike's going to fill us in about what has been happening at the Illinois Valley Airport. Tell us about helicopters in the IV airport, Mike, please.
Well, and listen, I might be missing some details here, but essentially Erickson Aircrane needed a place to do training and heavy lift training and what was the other, just hover training or that sort of thing, either which is very noisy. And there were a number of people that lived out by the IV airport who were objecting to the idea of it and were making claims that this would destroy people's well-being and their health and et cetera, et cetera. And we went to a couple of the meetings, or we went to one meeting previous to the one that happened tonight, and listened to the complaints of everybody and some facts about the aircraft that they're talking about being one of the loudest, if not the loudest, helicopter in the world. And then I guess there's some sort of conclusion, some sort of news on that tonight, isn't there, Dale?
Yeah, the prediction of what was going to happen is that the commissioners were going to push straight on through with this, led by Cheryl Walker, and they were going to do it whether people in the community wanted it or not. And that seemed pretty well borne out by the attitude that Commissioner Walker and Larry Graves, the airport's manager, had this evening during this meeting that they had. The place was packed once again with people who were concerned. Most of the people were concerned about the dangerous levels of sound that were going to come from this. Now, Larry Graves pointed out to everybody, well, there's been many tests, and the scientific tests say it never gets above a comfortable level. Well, they had just been told that there was one of the airport board members who was out there, and it was way, way above the comfortable noise level. Mm-hmm. So that there were dueling facts on this. There were some problems with the idea that they were supposed to come out, Erickson Aircrane, with one of their big choppers and do a test in front of the airport board, in front of the community, to show them that everything was going to be all right. Well, as is often happens with this county government, those tests were not quite done right. They weren't notifying people. Here was a second chance to come out and to see it, and then, well, people weren't told about it. And then when the helicopter arrived, it wasn't going to do any heavy lifting, which is where all the noise happens. Once again, it was not, let's say, what's the nice way to put it? It wasn't a model of government transparency, that's for sure. And so there was a lot of there were people who said, no, why didn't you do this right? Here you had this opportunity to show us how everything was going to be great, and then you kind of jiggered the test. What are you doing? That wasn't so nice. Okay, so there had been a number of indications that this was just a done deal and it was finished. And that was Cheryl's basic attitude when she walked in the door. Well, as it turned out, that when she walked in a little bit late, and Larry Graves was right in the middle of reading from his phone a message that had come in just 20 minutes before from Erickson Aircraft. And they'd said, look, we just want to make it sure that everybody understands that we're very good citizens. We really do care about communities. We're a very safe operation. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. And then they said, we've decided we're not going to be working with the IV airport after all.
Mm-hmm.
When he read that, Cheryl had just walked in the door and sat down, and she looked at him like, what? And the audience burst into applause. The place was packed. She was, what's a nice way to put it, PO'd maximum. She was very upset. Well, you realize that now this means that no one will ever move to the Ivy Airport. Yeah, this is really the end of economic development in the Illinois Valley. There won't be any more economic development here. I hope you realize you're going to pay a price for this.
Did she say that?
Yes, she did.
Wow.
She was very angry. Then Larry Graves went into a deal where there's not 17,000 people in this room. You don't all represent 17,000. This is just a small group of people. Well,
they're the ones who care.
Yeah. And, as one guy pointed out, he says, the small group of people thing, when you do a blood test, when a doctor draws some blood to find out what's wrong with you or whatever, he doesn't take out all your blood. He takes out a small representative sample of your blood. We are a representative sample of the community. Yeah, it was very interesting to me that there were people who had never been at one of these meetings before and may never come back again. And they had suddenly appeared and were saying all kinds of wonderful things about Erickson Aircraft. And I think what happened is that Larry Graves, the airport medic, I'm making my own guess, and Cheryl Walker had arranged for these people to come in and say happy things. Mm-hmm. Too late. It's a very big company, and they decided that the opposition from the local community, despite the assurances by the county commissioner that everything was going to be great, that the opposition from the local community who opposed the idea of having this, they felt, rammed down their throat, was enough to make Erickson go, okay, we hear you. They heard the people, but the commissioner didn't.
Yeah, well, that's par for the course.
So we're the first ones to report this to you. Now, it'll turn out it'll be the video will certainly be on the 11 o'clock news for Channel 10 KTVL. And I've got some footage, but I just walked in the door. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the firsts. And we'll crow tonight, and then we'll eat crow tomorrow night, probably. Some of the firsts that we had just this year, where we were an exclusive.
Actually, just last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Very good, Mike. Still not quite used to that. It's only the 4th.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Some of there's two different kinds of exclusives. Oh, I ought to do air quotes like Cheryl likes to do. Two different kinds of exclusives. One is when you're the first one to do it, and then somebody else will be second. Like many times we've been the first, and then the Daily Courier catches on to the story 2 weeks later, a week later, sometimes a couple of days later, but you're the first. That's an exclusive for a short time. And then there's the kind of exclusives where you're the only one that ever tells the story, and we've got several of those with the Courier and definitely over KJO. And that's a more clear example of exclusive story. Mike, you were about to say something?
No, I concur.
Okay. So we started out the year 2015 with just the end of 2014. We were the only ones for a while that, so it was exclusive just at the very beginning, that had told everybody that 851,000 Oregonians had been exposed, their records had been exposed by the Oregon Employment Department. They had a data breach, and thieves made away with what you figure. Put it in perspective. When I call my bank, they say, well, I think I recognize your voice, Dale, but why don't you tell me your full name, your address, your date of birth, and your social security number? With that, they'll give you just about everything. Well, these were the four things that just went flying out the door for 851,000 people in Oregon. Their name, their address, their date of birth, and their social security number.
Yeah, crazy.
851,000. And where's the story?
I would be very interested to know, of those people, how many people ultimately got their identity stolen or suffered some sort of identity theft, something like that. That'd be
everybody that lost a job, or Oregon Employment Departments, everybody that lost a job or was underemployed or whatever and had to go down to apply for unemployment or to get back onto the workforce or whatever, every single one of those people, and that's 1 in 3 Oregonians, was exposed during this.
I'm not one of those guys. Thank you.
I'm not one of those guys either. Okay, we were the first ones to announce, since of tonight's news, the first ones to announce that 100 new jobs were supposed to be started in Cave Junction to test and fly surveillance drones over our county. 100 new jobs. Woohoo!
Yes, that sounds promising.
That didn't quite turn out.
Whatever happened? Oh,
yeah. Well, in case you hadn't heard, that didn't quite turn out. That was another big disaster from this administration. It's okay if you're saying, well, here's something we think that we'd like to do. It depends on your attitude. Part of it is not we're going to make you do this whether you want it or not. Everybody got a chance to talk at tonight's meeting, and I said, well, one thing is you all should realize what you've done. Now, whether you've heard me say this before, whether you're geniuses or lunkheads, you have said what you want. And as opposed to, you knew the county commissioners were going to do this, and they were all like, yeah, I knew they were going to do it. I said, but what you've done is you've convinced the company to not do it, and now it's over. It doesn't matter what the commissioners want. You've had your way. They were feeling a little bit of power. I don't know whether they were super smart or not, but that's what they wanted in their community. We were the ones, when Doug Deakins called me and said, I had this encounter with Simon Hare. He was drunken in a bar, and he used our cell phone to call a girl in high school and a girl in college that are relatives of ours, and said to one of them, God, I got to get in your pants, and didn't know anything about them.
Yeah, but he texted him. He didn't call him.
Yeah, he was using the phone. I said that wrong. So Doug, this was the sixth person who talked to me about Simon doing such things, but we can't bring out and do a story about 5 people who don't want to talk. I understand why they don't want to talk, but I encouraged Doug to come to the weekly business session. He got up, and I'd say he was believable, Mike.
Yeah. And, for all the attention seeking that was supposedly his motive, you haven't seen or heard from the guy since.
Right. There were a couple of people said, who are these people? Well, he was probably doing it just to get the publicity. Really?
Yes. For what purpose? For his new website or whatever? DougDeakins.com.
We could call God, I got to get in your pants.com.
Oh, yes. Anyway, it never happened.
People who, I don't like it when you say what Simon Hare typed that. You don't like it? Talk to Simon. Okay, that was strike number 2 for Simon. The first one was the false police report. A false police report according to the police, not according to me. And this was the second one. It was actually the 6th one, but the first person is we were the one and only news guys to tell you about the huge Dimmick Tower costs overrun. And you've heard me say this before. How many places in America would $100,000 cost overrun not be a piece of news?
In a little town where people get favors and access from other people whom the story would have been about. And so that's why.
Well, then we did smaller stories that could have larger influence. We were the first ones, the only ones, to tell you that Simon Hare's project was he had in mind raising the park fees even higher. So he wanted to redefine some county streets as parks.
Yes. So that people could be ticketed, and then for skipping out on paying for the park fees.
Imagine if you lived on that street. Now, we haven't heard anything about this plan, but I think it's gone into hibernation. And when is Groundhog Day? February something?
Yeah, somewhere near. Yeah.
Well, we were.
I know it's usually still winter when that happens. For some reason.
We were the first ones and only ones to tell you about the false story about Simon Hare that was on TV.
Right.
Yeah, Mike and I were both there with cameras, 2 cameras, and we were there during where he promised to demean himself, which he has done. That's not what they meant.
Yes.
And that lady that worked for that TV station was fired.
Yeah, and Yeah, no one else did report that story, and yeah, that was weird. I think that was wishful thinking on the part of a lot of people. Would hope that there would have been some show, because that was basically his first appearance in public after the controversy there.
That's correct. We were there and the first ones to play back videotape and tell you that Mayor Jacobson and Cave Junction had called a local business owner. These were cannabis business owners. They were marijuana shop owners. He said that they were liars and threats to government.
Yes. I think there would probably be a lot more of that kind of talk. If they thought they could get away with it. I think perhaps the cannons are a little bit looser down there in Cave Junction. But I think we have the same type of people in charge up here. So there's really not a whole lot of difference.
We were the only ones to tell you the story about, but see, we're not news at all. According to the commissioners, you're not news people at all. Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, we were the only ones to tell you that the Illinois Valley Community Development Organization, gee, they keep ending up in the news again, got money from the county commissioners to build wheelchair ramps in a state park.
Mm-hmm.
And how many jobs was that going to yield there, Mike?
I think it was 214 family wage jobs. And when you think about that, I mean, what's a family wage job? That's like 30,000 plus, at least, I would think, even in this county.
Full-time jobs, not to build the ramps, ramps.
So go 214 times 30 grand plus. And, that's a lot of money, and you're getting that from, listen, it has to be the idea that there would be, people figured out there's a wheelchair ramp in a park up there in Cave Junction, so let's all go there. And there would
right.
And enough people. That's not just 214 people coming to town. That's, probably 214,000 people coming to town, over the period of a year in order to make 214 family wage jobs, people. And that's, I would think, family wage job. Is that pumping gas?
Yeah, it would have to be. How many businesses are in Cave Junction? 214 businesses? Yes, it would have to include a gas station. Something. They'd have to put on 2 new guys just to pump gas.
And you know what it is that most of the time they get away with stuff like this. So they just, that's how they write it out, and they go, here, I'm lazy today. This is what I'm writing down.
But they got the money from the commissioners, and they followed that up with a new plan. You remember what the new plan was?
Plaque on a rock, unless I'm mistaken.
90 full-time family wage jobs, yes. Not to put the plaque on the rock. Created because of the plaque on the rock. Created because of a plaque on a rock. That being the case, put 1,000 plaques on rocks, and you'll end up with 90,000 jobs.
Right. Yes. I mean, you'd have the whole county, even the children, employed.
That's right.
Wouldn't that be great? Of course, we might run afoul of some, child labor laws or something like that.
We just declare an emergency, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
As a direct result of this story, at that same time, Cheryl Walker came up with the idea that the reason why companies don't want to locate here, she finally put her finger on it. It's because of BadCounty.com. That's what she said.
Yeah, that can't be far off, really. I mean,
if
we have to have something to do with it.
If you look at this show, it's a tragedy if you look at it.
Well, apparently most of the county feels that way, Dale, because and I'll tell you, listen, I'm really impressed, and I guess I'm easily impressed. We have probably lately here, I'm amazed. Over the holidays, you'd think everybody would just vacate, but everybody was staycating or something, or they were taking us with them on their phones or something like that, because we've had consistent like overnight 60 views.
Yes.
That's really extraordinary. And
For the most hated thing, not us, but the
yeah,
most hated topic in all of the internet. And the internet's kind of a thing that's here to stay for a while. The
yeah,
most
right.
hated thing, the most despised thing on the entire internet is local politics.
Yes, and I guess they say it's boring. So Dale and I have decided to do what no one else does and do it better than anyone else.
We're more boring
And
than everybody else.
that's right. So I hope we're trying to be successful here, and thanks for your help in that regard.
Yeah, well, and also we're trying to let people know, and you are too, by talking to your neighbors and to little kids. He's following the little kids around the neighborhood again. Stop it, Grandpa. I don't want to hear about politics. Okay. When the commissioners initiated a levy, then we told everybody about it. And then they yelled at me at meetings because people were smiling when they denied it.
That's right.
Just smile. We weren't making any noise. Well, if you're going to chortle with joy, you'll need to leave this. Hey, we're smiling because when I got my chance to speak, I didn't speak. When I got my chance, I said the reason that people are smiling or maybe even laughing out loud, Mr. Heck, is because they've seen the tape.
Yeah, I think maybe those guys need some sedatives or something. And when it comes around, I mean, the first part of the year, what happens every time at the beginning of the year? They elect a new chair, and the new chair usually comes in all fired up to wreak havoc and chain people to their chairs and force them to sit with their hands folded in their lap and that sort of thing. And that's so I'm expecting that's going to be coming up here. Maybe even tomorrow. Who knows?
It would more likely come up on Wednesday morning at the weekly business session, but it's also.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're right.
No problem. It's also going to happen on Wednesday evening.
I'm out of time here.
Okay. It's also going to happen on Wednesday evening at the city council, the Grants Pass City Council meeting, because they put out their new rules of what you can say and you can't say.
Oh.
And yes. And now you will no longer be able to talk about anything that's not within the control of city government.
Wow. Okay.
So, let's talk. Well, what are some things not in control of city government? People's low opinion of them. People and the way they vote now, the way that people are laughing about them behind their back. None of those things. They have no control over any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask the question.
That makes sense.
I'm going to ask the question. Now, if we're prohibited from speaking about things having to do with the county, aren't you prohibited from doing that too? Because you do it all the time.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Right. I mean, if somehow county business becomes city business enough for them to have something to say about it, then doesn't it become city business enough for someone who is observing the whole thing play out to have a comment about?
There you go. And who's the boss around here anyway? Well, it's not me. It's all of us. Okay. We were the first ones, with the help from Bill Hunker, to put out stats, the real stats about the Oregon State Police and about crime, about their crime statistics in this area. We had the sheriff absolutely refusing to want to even talk. In fact, we even played you a tape last night. Well, it's really not about the stats. Yes, it's about the stats. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. And they were saying the Oregon State Police that we were getting an inordinate amount of help from we're sucking the whole state down the drain.
Yeah, that's right.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
And who's our source for no, we're not? The Oregon State Police.
Yeah, that's right.
We were one of the first to tell you about the 6-year-old.
That's right.
What was the 6-year-old story, Mike?
That was his mom kept dropping him off late, and he got set at the shame table, and they put him behind a barrier, and it made national news. I mean, it was all over the place.
We were one of the first ones to tell you that story. Okay, so coming here is not such a bad idea, but It's a tragedy if you look at it. We did election night coverage. In fact,
Yeah.
we did so much election night coverage, people were counting on us to do it, even if we didn't tell them about it. And on one of the shows, how many views did we get on one of those shows, Mike?
It was 2,874, and that was
Gee.
the most recent here in November, and that was overnight. That's overnight. That blew our minds. And then I thought, well, didn't we get a whole lot of views on the May 19th election there? And
Yeah,
I went back.
Go ahead.
It was like 400 or something like that.
It seemed like a lot at the time.
Yeah, it did. It was huge at the time.
Yeah,
but
people were sort of warming up to it.
Yeah, and that election night, that wasn't our first live thing. We did do the of course, that doesn't really fall under the news umbrella, but it was news to a lot of people, the actual numbers there. And we put on or we didn't put it on, but we covered it.
Despite Art Harvey trying to keep us away from the news. That was amazing.
It was the argument against the levy.
Yeah.
And we covered that. It was about a 2-hour program. That got some pretty good views.
Well, I was at the Elected Officials Compensation Committee, and that sounds boring, except those are the people who make the recommendations to the commissioners about how much the commissioners should make. Really. And all of the elected officials, Art Harvey and also Wally Hicks and the sheriff, anyone's elected, these guys get together and they're handpicked by the commissioners. So you can just guess what kind of advice they're going to make. And what had happened was a couple of years in a row, I had gone to this meeting, and I'd been there at my third meeting, and I said, does anyone on this, because they were all new committee members, all of them were new, and I said, that's unusual. Do any of you understand or know why you're all new? And they were like, well, no. And J.J. Schofield, the HR director, well, okay, that's enough from you. I said, hey, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me just explain this. Well, it's certainly not the truth. And I said, well, let me just say what it is first. And the reason why the last group all quit all at the same time was that they were upset about this idea. They started thinking about it, were upset by the idea of comparator counties. That's not true. It's not true. I said, yes, that's true. Let me just speak. And the reason why is they were not happy with the idea that we were comparing with counties that make a fortune compared to us, and our union employees and the people who are non-union, the elected officials, they would like to be paid equal to counties where they're making a bunch of bucks.
Yeah, and this is an interesting environment because here you probably I haven't been in this situation when this is happening, but you have a room and you got rows of chairs, I'm assuming, with some of them occupied by the elected officials that want to see that they're going to get a raise that year.
Quite right.
Now, if it was review time at your job and, you were all sitting in some place waiting for the boss to call you in and talk, wouldn't you have some feeling of trepidation that you're going to have to face your boss and rationalize why you should make more money for the job that you're doing? These guys don't feel any of that because they're sitting really in front of friends. The guy who's the chair there, and I forget what, Larry West, I believe his name is. Listen, no better friend of local government can you have than that guy. And he was the chair of that committee, and the other people were sort of noobs. So he's probably laying down, how they ought to come out on things and getting his way.
Exactly right.
And so these people aren't having to actually face their boss. They're facing somebody who is part of the group of people that is the boss, but is a friend of the employee. And that's a very similar situation to how we deal with union contracts in this county too. So, or probably any county for that matter.
When he made his report to the budget committee, it was the first report. Gee, isn't that interesting? Elected officials compensation committee, the very first report to the budget committee. Go figure. And he says, by the way, I just wanted to add in something else. I'm thinking, what else could he add in? It sounded like what all they had discussed. Yeah, I just like to add in, when it seems like there's maybe a website out there that's critical of government, who do you think that he means, Mike? Why,
Yes.
our county government ought to spend our taxpayers' money on coming up with their own happy website. Does this sound familiar? Where it
Mhm.
extols the virtues of the county government. And it could be something like, all the good things that are happening in our county.com.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Ah,
Small town government is great.com.
yes. Goodcounty.com, but they can't do that. We
Yes.
already have
Yeah.
that one. We were the first ones to visit the Sugar Pine Mine in person. We did a bunch of first stories and only stories, exclusive stories with the Sugar Pine Mine guys, partly because they trust us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they have a
and
healthy disregard for local media.
yeah, they did, and that was an interesting thing there, and I think it gave us some insight into what was going on back there that probably other people didn't have, or they weren't even getting from other news reports about it. Now, listen, I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about something else that's in the news right now, which I think is dissimilar in many ways
That's a good segue.
yeah
And now for
to
something completely different.
yes, here's something we hope you'll really like. um uh I thought that it was a good thing they were out there. The motivations were correct. I don't particularly agree with what's going on up there in what is it, Burns, Oregon right now. And I think that those guys are doing a disservice. I understand. Listen, it was a tragedy what happened to those ranchers, and I think they're getting the book thrown at them, and that is completely wrong. But I think that these guys are making a mistake here. They're the liberty movement in terms of the Western lands doesn't need bad publicity. And I think that there's plenty of legitimate stuff to protest about on that front without doing something that is, ultimately could get people killed. And I don't think it's the right thing for it. And who I am. I'm not a government lover by any means. I think they rarely do anything right. Not only that, I believe that at some point, not advocating for it at all. I'm not one of these people that has, dreams about having a showdown with the government. Not at all. However, I do believe at one point it probably will come to that, just because of behavior on the part of the government. But I'm not a leader of that group. Don't put me in that thing there. I believe in our rights to be able to defend ourselves against tyrannical government, but I don't think what they're doing is that right now. And so
now I was in a meeting, but is it true?
Throw that out.
Do we know if it's true that the president of the United States decided today to burn down their home?
Oh, I didn't hear that. I did hear that.
I don't know if it's true. I don't know. That's what I'd heard at this meeting.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that. I haven't heard that. And there's been all kinds of stuff, and there's been so much of it that I stopped paying attention to some of it. But I did hear that he was planning on taking some new executive action on gun control. And I just think, why isn't there some sort of a mechanism in place to stop a runaway executive branch? That is just blows my mind. But now we're really getting off the track.
Well, you can bring it back by talking about a runaway executive branch, about the recall. And your role. You have a role.
My role?
Yes, you do. You're helping people fill out the dang forms.
Oh, yeah. I listen, I just pointed
I sent mine
out that. Oh, good. All right. Yeah. And here is the form right here. And once again, I'll put the link. Well, let me see where you can really see what's
just do
on
a
there.
screen
Okay.
capture based on him moving it around. Okay,
no. I'll put a link in the description of this video.
And
yet again,
put up our email address. We've already gotten a couple of responses from people saying, please send it to me. So put up our email address, and they're next to you. Now, all you need to do is send an email to badcounty@cpros.com, badcounty@cpros.com, and we will happily send back to you one of these forms you can fill out and a secret decoder ring.
Yes.
Drink more Ovaltine.
Right. Yes. I was wondering if it would let us have insight into the minds of the commissioners there. But you don't need that decoder ring because we decode that stuff for you every evening.
We do our best to do that. That's quite right. Okay. So, Mike, after that meeting, after going and spending time with those folks out at Sugar Pine Mine, do you remember the next big story that happened where we were kind of called on the carpet for being questioning government? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and basically what this was is that somebody who we know who recently died, actually, is a gal who ran one of the more popular, probably the most popular Facebook group page in Josephine County, is Josephine County Neighborhood Chat. And she had gone to, see Mark Goins at his church. What is it? River Valley Church or something like that.
That's right.
Anyway, so she came home and wrote this thing about what happened there. And so I went to the website and pulled down the video of it. And I was amazed because she wasn't underselling it at all. This guy was really actually even put it up on the screen that somehow, if the Romans 13 argument that if you don't, or you're not supportive of government, that somehow you are guilty of the sin of divination, and likened unto a Satan worshiper. And that blew
he wrote that out.
minds.
That's not our interpretation. He wrote that out. And so we were the ones that exposed that video. It was already on Facebook, but we exposed it to everybody.
Yeah.
And we got responses from all over the country about that one.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Well, now we were also the first and only ones. I went on Bill Meyer's show on KMED afterwards to talk about how the people that were pushing for the levy at that same time, because this was about questioning authority and not backing the levy. And we indicated that it sure did look like that the levy pushers were paying money for false support statistics. Can you explain that one, Mike?
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, some of this comes down to the way Facebook tabulates a view on one of their videos, which is really, really goofy. It doesn't really mean that somebody has actually seen the video, but if you have loaded a page, your news feed, and somewhere in that news feed is that particular video, whether you come across it or not, that counts as a view. And they were paying for this advertisement. They were advertising this very heavily. And we were watching some of these were the ones that they put on their website, the exact same videos, were barely incrementing at all. And those were posted on YouTube, so we could watch what the numbers were on those. And then, but the Facebook ones were incrementing in sometimes 300, 400, 500 an hour.
So this is just impossible.
And at a consistent, but I mean, it's even worse than that because it was consistent. It was the same number of increase every hour. And we know from having a lot of videos on YouTube, it doesn't work that way.
We've been doing this for a while. So no, that's not and we put ours on YouTube and we know how many people have looked at them. Okay. And we've got a fairly decent idea of who even dislikes the videos. But of course, we put them on Facebook, we put them on YouTube, and we put them on Facebook. But when somebody views that, so they're looking at the text, it doesn't even mean that they've clicked on the video. We don't even count those.
Well, here's the nice thing is that the views on our videos are pretty honest views, because we are not uploading to YouTube and then redundantly uploading to Facebook,
Right.
because then our view count would be totally askew. We wouldn't really have that good of an idea of who's watching on Facebook, because their numbers really aren't accurate.
It'd be totally
but
what? Totally what?
askew.
God bless you.
Yes. Yes. So anyway, we post our YouTube videos on Facebook, and then when people are watching them, we're getting a true view count,
Yeah, I think we are. Also, the other thing that we got a true count on is the surveys that we do, the polls that we do. You don't have to pay $25,000 for our poll either,
Right.
as opposed to the Daily Courier, which is fake. And Mike proved live on this show that it's fake.
Right.
So
I did.
Courier, yeah, he did. You took the risk and did. Okay, so we when we were able to sit down with Wally Hicks before Wally Hicks turned on all of us, we went through a whole thing about how the county had gone to court against itself and won. What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve Rich, the former legal counsel, had fought in court against the people who voted him in to turn around so that you would no longer have any control over fees. Isn't that lovely? We broke that story wide open.
Yeah, well, I mean, that wasn't exactly a breaking story. It was a revisitation and a discovery of what had actually
happened. Not know, right? But
yeah,
that's
that's true. That's right.
I mean, it was an older story, but they didn't know. Well,
they didn't realize they got schnookered.
Another thing that people didn't know was Cheryl Walker's true feelings about rural conservatives. You remember that one, Mike?
Yeah, she probably thinks that we're all like these people up there in Burns right now, and listen here. Let's make a clear distinction between terrorists and those guys. Whatever you think of what they're doing, and I think they're a little bit misguided right now. They're not violent. They don't appear to be, shooting things up, and they're not beheading anybody. I know that. But no, Cheryl Walker did something, some presentation. It was from some bogus story that was done by some guy who was, God, I wish I had. He was a West Point guy.
Yeah, he was a West Point professor. Yeah, about terrorism.
Right. Yeah. Which should have made him credible, but instead, I guess he's a left-wing whack job and wanted to come up with some story to validate his own thinking. And what his claim was that since 9/11, there have been 20-something incidences of terrorism by Muslim extremists in the United States, or something like that. But on the other hand,
on a daily basis, there's a million every day.
Oh, well, it wasn't a million a day, but it was tantamount to one a day. Anyway, it was 352 incidents per year, since 9/11, and that's like one a day.
Yes,
I was wondering why we hadn't heard the reports, but that's also another little tidbit that ties her to the Democratic Party and the fringe left, and not just the Democrats, because you got blue dogs in there, you got all kinds of different Democrats, just like apparently you have all different kinds of Republicans.
Oh, definitely. But so
she's out on the left wing fringe. She's hanging 10 off the wingtip out there.
Well, other things that we exposed that nobody had heard, and this is an amazing story, and even recounting it just makes me think, what, that can't possibly be right, and I feel like I must go back right now and take a look at that tape. It was our health director who said, I've got good news. So, okay, good news. And the good news was, are you ready for this? You guys out there may remember this. It's not funny. Since the infant mortality rate, we're talking dead babies. Oh, that's terrible. Don't say that. Well, that's what we're talking about. Since the infant mortality rate in Josephine County is now so high The good news is that the county government will get more money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not very often I'm sitting in that little back room and feel like falling off my chair, but that one did it to me. That was the good news that Diane Hoover had for the and that's Cheryl Walker going, oh, that is good news. That's good news.
Well, and listen, this is kind of an insight to what the thinking is, and their thinking is all wrapped around their ability to get more funding in some way into government, and that's a good thing, no matter how it happens. And so, yeah, no matter how it happens, even if it's because the infant mortality rate is higher.
These are the same people who will go into this thing and march with people for a right to life gathering. But the good news is that since the infant mortality rate is so high, the county will get more money. Look, and just imagine that you're listening to KJO. Well, I know that's kind of hard, but imagine you're listening to KJO. Do you think that they did a story about Cheryl Walker and her feeling about rural conservatives? Do you think that they did a story about the infant mortality rate? Do you think that they did a story about the mayor saying to you and your camera that if the businesses are going out of business in our area, that he'd keep this sales tax going for 1 or 2 years more?
Yes.
That's not going to be on KJO.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Okay, so I got in a bunch of trouble. Well, that's not news. I got in a bunch of trouble from Cheryl Walker because, as it turned out, this Echo Northwest, the outfit that's supposed to tell us what our economic advantages are in this area and help us figure out that we've got trees and rivers in our favor, they're going to tell us all about that. The city council decided they wanted to work together with the county commissioners, bogus idea or not bogus idea, to help promote our area. And they were going to take a vote about whether to do it or not. Now, this vote was very important because it was evenly split. Half of the city council didn't want to do it, and half of them did. And the mayor stepped in, and instead of saying, because we're half and half, maybe we ought to do as a couple of the councilors have said and study this more. No, he said, I'm voting in favor of this. What was the thing that pushed them over the edge? Well, part of it was that the city manager told them that the county had already accepted the idea. Oh, well, if that's the case, our partners already accepted it, and that was in the Courier. The only problem with that is that was false. They had not accepted it. We know that because unlike the Courier who just reported it, they hadn't accepted it. And so I got up at a weekly business session. This is one of the things I do because you said hold their feet to the fire, and I revealed that it was a false story, and when I asked the city manager where he got the information, he said we got it from Cheryl Walker. So instead of blaming the Courier, or instead of blaming the city council, she blamed me. So, well,
yeah, it's kind of your fault anyway, though.
Yeah. Well, just to look at this show is a tragedy in itself. We were the ones to tell you and to play back again and again what President of the City Council, DeYoung, said. This guy's gonna run for county commissioner. You watch, he'll run for county commissioner. I think I got the proof now. And the mayor have said about how stupid the voters are that voted down the Grants Pass sales tax.
You said you had the proof. What's the proof?
Well, I think I do. Okay, so here's what I got, which when, it's connecting the dots. As Simon says, I just can't connect the dots. Do you remember the story about why he said that? I can't connect the dots. This was that they wanted to put in this huge intersection down for the North Valley, right? And the reason why Simon Hare said again and again and again and again that it's a failing intersection first, and then it's one about to fail, and then it was already failed, a failed intersection. So I asked ODOT, why are you guys saying this is a failed intersection, that people are backing up onto the highway? They're not backing up onto the highway. ODOT guy says, we never said that. Oh, wait a minute. Where's that story coming from? He says, well, my understanding is it's coming from one of the commissioners who's kind of speaking on behalf of some of the contractors in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Simon Hare's response was, I just can't connect those dots. I guess because they're O dots. I don't know. Anyway,
Yes.
so I think the connecting the dots on this one is when Dan DeYoung was running for county commissioner, the last time there was an election for them, he ran for county commissioner in 2012. And the big election, not the one with Simon Hare, but the one where there were two that were running, and they, you know who they ended up being, the two that are about to be gone. And Lily Morgan opened up that video saying what a wonderful guy he'd be to work with. She's also said on our show that he'd be a wonderful guy to work with. And I've heard a number of people saying it looks to me like Dan DeYoung may run for commissioner. It's just maybe connecting dots that don't connect. It's possible.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that sounds about right because he's, anyone who's tone deaf enough to not read, which way the wind was blowing on that thing, and then to have the audacity to, be complaining about people complaining about this a dog that got thrown out in front of them, the sales tax measure, and anybody who is that tone deaf, I guess it's not too much of a stretch to think that they might end up running. I can see the commercials against him right now. Those are not going to be good for him.
Now, we were the ones that told you about this arsenic in the water thing. We were the ones that first exposed the idea that there was someone that's going to do testing for arsenic in the water. That ended up being a fairly big story. We were the only ones who talked about it, and how the county was going to go it alone, and how Cheryl Walker said the city just wasn't interested. And the only reason that we know that is because I sit in the little back room and I pay attention. And we played that for you.
And then and it was only after the results were in and they were conclusive that there wasn't any arsenic, not marginal amount, but any arsenic in the water, that the county pulled their $135,000 a year contract to test for arsenic and other things in the water, got pulled. And then, and only then, did the Courier pick that up.
What happened to all that money, Mike?
Oh, I'm sure it's busy buying another deputy right now.
Oh yeah, because they said it could. Okay, so now I think this is a big story, and maybe nobody else agrees. Maybe Mike. This idea that the commissioners have, the head of HR has, legal counsel has, Roy Lindsay has from the city council, that once you have something on videotape, that all that they need to do is say, well, we're not debating whether you're interpreting it right. No. We're not debating that it might mean other things. No. We're denying that you're even looking at it. What? As legal counsel said, that didn't happen. No, it's on tape. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. This is the Roy Lindsay explanation. It's not on tape. And at the meeting where Roy Lindsay denied it, so did our county legal counsel. It's not on tape.
You know what? I mean, that's a really weird thing for me, and I'm trying to get inside the head of Roy Lindsay when he talks about that. I have to believe that somewhere in his mind he thinks that if you just say that it didn't happen, then maybe people will find you more credible than Dale Matthews, and then your story that it never happened will be the story, as opposed to the videotape, which shows.
What does that say about Roy Lindsay lovers? I mean, and specifically what he had said, and the legal counsel said on that. Now, legal counsel has since denied other things that were on tape, but this specific thing, I was at a meeting of Oath Keepers, okay? I tried to keep track of what people do in the area, and I'd said something about what Mark Bartholomew, in a court of law, Mike and I were both there. Roy Lindsay was there. Legal counsel was there. We were all there, okay? And we were taping with 2 cameras, and it's a court proceeding, Okay. And Colleen Martin from the Chamber of Commerce was there. And there's a court stenographer. And Mark Bartholomew said that the city could at any time nullify the vote. They could revoke the vote, or they could at any time put these things on there without a vote of the people. And I said so.
Right.
Roy Lindsay, first legal counsel, our legal counsel, said, well, I'm not really sure that's what he said. And I looked at him and said, well, okay, maybe you've got it on tape. Maybe I have it on tape. He was in the room. Roy Lindsay said, absolutely not. That didn't happen. That just didn't happen. That didn't happen. If you shake your finger and say that didn't happen, he fits right in with the commissioners. That didn't happen. It just didn't happen. You going to believe this politician or your lying eyes? I mean, it didn't happen. Sorry. Whatever you think you saw on video, didn't happen. The other thing that didn't happen, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission never did find the commissioners guilty of anything, Mike. I got up at the weekly business session, announced this result. They were not happy, Mike.
Yes, they were not.
Brother.
Yes.
Okay, so smaller stories again, but I think fairly shocking. County Health Department official says more than 50% of the food served at local schools gets thrown away by the students. Why are they throwing away their food, Mike?
And we did cover that here a couple of days ago, but that's, they don't like it. And
they don't like that
listen,
food.
There's some speculation that it has to do with Michelle Obama's, healthy food program for the kids' schools. And it may well be that. Because that program is being panned all over America, wherever they're doing it. Kids don't want to eat rutabagas.
Do you remember? There's enough blame to go around. Do you remember? Because government always, no matter what party, wants to put their hands in things. Do you remember when ketchup was classified as a vegetable that could be served to kids?
Yes, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Just put more ketchup.
But Dale. Yeah. There's a difference.
Oh, I know there's a difference. Yeah.
Kids actually like ketchup.
They do like ketchup. That's right. That's right. They would put ketchup on a lot of things. We were the first people because we were trusted by the Merlin fire guys to tell you that they had been frozen out of that process for fire standards. And they came on our show. And tell them the result of after they came on our show. What happened immediately, Mike?
Yeah, well, I think it's fairly safe to assume that them being on our show and indicating the injustice of them being locked out, that all of a sudden they were included like
the next morning.
The morning after that. Yes, they were. Right. They got a phone call saying, yeah, come on down, you guys are part of the crew here. And because
few people watch our show, but it must be some of the right people.
Yeah, that's right.
So you as our loyal viewers or disloyal viewers or moles or whatever, you are part of the power elite in Josephine County. Hey, yeah, well, should be anyway. We were the ones that exposed that the city councils were laughing, and a bunch of them were, because the Grants Pass City is swimming in so much money that it's kind of awkward.
Yeah. And I personally think they don't have any money. This is the odd thing, is that they would think, they know that the water plant project is looming. Okay. But they still feel like they've got a bunch of money to spend. You don't have any money. It's so weird. Only politicians think that way. And clearly I thought, it was funny because the context of the statement is talking about whether or not they want to spend city money up in the North Valley Industrial Park.
Yeah.
Which was like, and they go, why would we want to do that? But, then they, in the next breath, they're talking about how much money they have for other things. Yeah.
I can tell you how that got started, because I sat through that whole long blathering meeting, and the reason why is because Dan DeYoung was making eyes at Cheryl Walker and agreeing with everything she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just like, hey, get a room, you guys. I mean, they were just all over each other and loving each other back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so,
Wow.
yeah, Dennis Roller wanted in on the action.
Just in case you want to see that, that's the November 30th meeting there.
Yeah.
You can find it online if you dig around. You'll see it.
He was so delighted to agree with Cheryl about everything, which is another reason why I think that he believes he wants to be a county commissioner. Oh, we're almost caught up. We're almost done with our time. You'll recognize these three stories just as I thought that we had the big story, and it will end up being the big story of 2016, that the commissioners themselves, it was done because of Cheryl Walker. They kicked off Levy 2016. Oh, no, we didn't. Yes, you did, because Cheryl Walker asked staff to do the research, and then all three of them, despite what Simon, I said no. Simon, you were involved in a strategy session, all three commissioners talking about how Levy 2016 could be sold to the people. And it was Keith Heck who said, let's give it to some group like SOS, and let's give it like it's them.
Yeah, let's give it to somebody else so that we don't have to. Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. You can't really get out of that. If this was a grassroots thing, the grassroots would also do the math. They would also do whatever research had to be done in order to put it on the ballot and make the case for it. So to have county staff do it and then just hand that off to, it's just another arm of local government, SOS, in case you haven't figured that out.
Yes, and you've never mentioned that before, so that's
I've never mentioned that. So that's breaking news tonight. This will be on next year's first reel.
That's our very first time that. And now I want to be sure that and this next story, which I thought was not as big as that, but still pretty important for the ramifications of it. Keep in mind when I'm saying this, we're not talking about telling folks about the wonderful rivers and trees in Josephine County or Grants Pass. We're talking about the individual reputations of county commissioners. The commissioners decided, suggested by everyone's favorite commissioner today, Simon Hare, that they should spend taxpayers' money to hire somebody to write happy stories about individual commissioners and then pay for them to go into a newspaper if that's what they have to do. Because no one wants to write happy stories about them. Now that Jim Moore is gone, nobody's writing happy stories about the commissioners ever again.
Campaign ads.
That's what they are. And you might as well face up to it, in my opinion. I was thinking about this today. I thought about something today. It's amazing. There are really three commissioner candidates now. It's Cheryl Walker, of course. It's Keith Heck, of course. It's also Simon Hare, because Simon Hare is going to be fighting against this recall effort, probably. And he's going to be fighting for his political reputation on statewide basis, which is more important to him, in my opinion, and also locally. He's a commissioner candidate now, a de facto commissioner candidate. So I was on KMED on my regular spot with them at 6:30 every Monday morning when Bill Meyer mentioned to me a story, and then we picked that up. So we weren't the very first, but we were immediately thereafter with story after story after story about Simon Hare being arrested. We were absolutely the first one to tell you that the commissioners had decided. Now, this is, even though Simon Hare says he doesn't want this, he doesn't need this, the commissioners were willing. I can't believe this. They were willing to pay for a free chauffeur for Simon Hare, free gas, free vehicle, probably meant union double time, food and lodging once he goes out of town, so that people could be taken from, remember, we're bare bones. We don't have enough people to go around. We're going to take somebody off of their job, have them escort him up there, stay overnight in the same room. I don't think so. With Simon getting all that time and a half, double time, whatever, missing their work back here. You got to pay their food, got to pay their lodging, just so Simon could go gallivanting around the state representing us. And their denial of this is, well, there's nothing we can do. Of course there's something you can do. What they are going to decide. in the next couple of days, almost done. What they're going to decide in the next couple of days is what the assignments are as liaisons for the commissioners. Okay. What are the assignments? All you have to do as a group of commissioners, 2-1, is say, Simon, I don't care what you do, but it better be within inside this building.
Yeah.
Inside this building.
And then give him a skateboard.
That's all that you need.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole thing of them, offering him a free chauffeur. I mean, this is the fruit of a litigious society, really. You have, why? Ask yourself why. Why would they think that is something that they needed to do? They're protecting themselves from liability. That's the whole point.
You just drowned him. See, that just like this helicopter. You just drowned the guy.
Dale, I'm not discounting your idea. Really, I'm not. Okay. I'm just saying that this is the reason why you have this sort of thing. And I guess this isn't the right place to pitch tort reform. But you throw loser pays in and a couple of other little funky little things that throw wrenches in the works that'll never happen because all legislators are usually lawyers, and that would fix up a lot of that problem. But
that's why Simon Hare was in a strip joint. That's why he was there. Tort reform. He was trying to do tort reform.
Yes. Right.
Okay. All right. Now I'm drawing a blank.
It's the end of the show.
Oh, maybe that's why. Oh, one last thing, a little prediction for you, or a little question that you might have for Wednesday's weekly business session. We were there for you when the commissioners decided that they would have a ceremonial vote, because they already decided that Simon Hare would be the new chair and that Cheryl Walker would be the vice chair and that Keith Heck would be the nothing. And they decided that. And so they were going to announce that with falderall at Wednesday's weekly business session at 9 a.m. Now it turns out, it looks like, according to the Daily Courier, that Cheryl Walker's already on the list as being the new chair. Now, so here's the question for everybody. Remember how much trouble they've gotten into about making decisions or talking about things where they shouldn't be without the public there because it's against the law? How did they come to that decision?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
See you there on Wednesday, everybody.